Hello and welcome to the This is Marketing podcast. My name is Ross Marone, and in this episode, we're going to discuss personal branding and landing clients. Had an interesting week this week. I had two different people reach out to me by email with questions about client interactions. One was actually more of a personal branding question, and one was more of a how do I expand my business and actually get clients to understand the value of actually marketing their business, especially small businesses. So, with my first email, I actually asked for permission to read this email back because I think that it's very interesting because it's something that I can remember going through myself, and the troubles that I had with clients and just figuring out how to actually get them to bite on my services. So I'm actually just going to read the email verbatim so you could kind of get the feeling and the sense of where I was when I received this. And then I'll share my response with him and why I did this. So his email starts, and this is from Snyder Smith. I'm a graphic designer by trade, but I've been diving slowly into marketing realm over the past few years. I picked up guerrilla marketing by J. Conrad Levinson and started applying some of the techniques with my clients who small business owners or self-employed individuals with no marketing or advertising concerns or budgets. Some embraced it, but most just pushed it aside after a week or two and expected results with little to no business. Most have folded due to no customers. The majority of my clients are small business folks, 1 to 15 employees with mostly local and regional reach with micro budgets. To give you an idea of the concern with marketing and design, most believe the business cards from Vistaprint are amazing and that advertisements made in Microsoft Word are just as good as something professionally done. And they are too small to invest money into long term or consistent marketing plans. I've tried several tactics on trying to sell marketing to people, but have always found that marketing on a level of little to no concern and generally rely on spending $20 to $40 on boosting a post on Facebook. Side note, the metrics I have seen boosted posts are the same as direct mailing, approximately 2% interaction rate, which is under 20% of that 2% click the link in the post, and under 5% of that, 0.5% share the post. So it brings this all up because he's curious that if I could provide any advice or a podcast, which I'm doing, on working with clients or individuals who don't value marketing and either don't invest in it or give up after a few weeks. He said he felt that this was a broad question, which is not because he's self-taught on marketing. There's probably some basics he's missing, which I'm pretty much self-taught too when it comes to marketing. And it's hard to really get a business to understand the value of marketing when they're so tight on their budgets. So the first thing that I told him that I like to do when I sit down with a client is usually let them give me their pitch of why they think they need me. And that really helps you gauge where they're at with their level of knowledge. It helps you understand maybe where their budget might be. There's keywords and trigger words that they're going to say that says, how can we do this ourselves? We're just looking for some creative ideas, which is fine. I mean, I applaud businesses that can go out there and try to do the marketing themselves. The problem is that when they say they're going to invest the resources, there's usually some kind of momentum behind them saying, we're going to do this ourselves and we're going to do it now. The problem is that momentum fades. And if there's no impact or no results right away, it quickly gets pushed aside. The problem with marketing for any business, this is true with branding or marketing or advertising, is that if you don't let those programs mature, and I'm talking between 6 and 18 months, really, let these little things that you're going to do mature over time. You're going to get kind of disheartened about it. You're going to pull out and you're going to say, you know what, I'm not going to spend any more money because I'm not seeing the results. The problem is that you have to let the audience be exposed to your brand and your advertising over and over. Your first interaction isn't going to be the first time that you sink a sell. And if you do, it's probably a lucky thing to have happen. It's like fishing. You're going to cast out there a bunch of times, but until you can find the sweet spot of where the fish are, you're not going to catch anything. So the questions that I like to ask after the client gets done, give me this, or there's 6 of them that I generally ask each and every time. So the first question is, what do you want your customers to accomplish with your business? So it's pretty general. Most people just want them to buy their product. I want them to buy my product. But when you start to ask those questions and you start to understand why this business is trying to accomplish you having you do more marketing for them. So it helps you kind of lay a baseline. We want them to buy products. So that kind of becomes your end goal. We want to increase the sale of products. And that's pretty general, but you still need to ask that question because maybe it's not that. Maybe it is we want our business name to be out there more. We're selling good products. But what happens is someone may buy our product and there's a similar product from business B that has better brand than us and they get more exposure. So, you have to ask that question because there could be vary to it. Number two is, how do they currently discover you or your product? So, what do you already have in place that's allowing customers to discover you or to find you? By doing this, it helps you kind of get another baseline for what they've done in the past. And again, how much knowledge they have. If they've maybe used another agency or used another person to help them with their marketing, you can start to figure out why that relationship turned south. And most businesses will give that up within the first 5 minutes of the conversation. I have to tell you, we were working with such and such, and it just didn't work out. We weren't getting what we thought we were getting from them. And the good question there is, well, what were you expecting from them? Because that lets you know from your perspective what you have to do for them. Third question, who is your typical customer? And then this has sub questions to it. So what's their age, their location, gender, interests, income, all things that, if you were doing some kind of marketing analysis, you would figure this out for them. But they may have a grip on that. And especially if they have a brick and mortar business where they know the type that's coming in, they might generally say, okay, well, we see more women in here that are middle-aged, that have families, that stay at home. So maybe they have higher income because they don't have to work. But just finding out that typical customer base will really help you start with, okay, if you have limited funds, which I guarantee a small business is always going to say, well, I have limited funds. You're not going to walk into a multi-million-dollar business that wants your services. Generally, they're probably doing something that's working. So when a small business is approaching you, it's typically because they need to kind of turn things around a little bit, or they need to explore more avenues. So finding out their typical customer base gives you an immediate target that you can work with. And so question 4 becomes, what are you currently doing to market your business? This kind of goes into an answer for number 2, but it's really defining that. So what have you done in the past? Are you taking out newspaper ads? Are you buying phone book ads? Which, if they are, God, please stop them. Tell them not to do it. No wonder they're spending all their marketing budgets on just really archaic type of marketing ventures, in my opinion, for sure. Question 5 is, what data are you collecting about your sales, customers, or marketing efforts? So there's 3 areas there: sales, customers, marketing efforts. Sales is pretty typical. They're going to say, okay, we either have a POS system that we use where we can pull that data and show you exactly what we have. If they're selling online, hopefully they're using some kind of Shopify or some kind of build behind that where you can pull data out to see what products are being sold, where the customers are coming from. You can look at actual customer data to see, okay, how many products were bought by how many customers. Do you have any more information about customers? Where do they live? What regions? What zip codes? Are they local? Is it regionally? Is it worldwide? And then any of the marketing efforts. So any advertising that you're doing, typically if somebody's selling some type of advertising, there's some kind of impression goal or promise that's being made that, okay, we'll get you 100,000 impressions, which means nothing if you're not getting any conversions off of it. I don't care who you are and you believe that fact, well, stop listening. I want clicks. I want actual conversions off impressions. I don't care that you give me 100,000 impressions. If that's shit traffic, I'm not going to get anything from it. And then pretty general last question that usually, I remember when I started out, I never asked this question, what's your budget? But you learn that you don't beat around the bush, because if they come back and say my budget's $100, well, I'll see you, I'm out. But if they come back and say my budget's $5,000 and that's going to include any fees we have to pay you, well, then you can start to figure out, okay, what amount of time do I think I'm going to spend with this business setting everything up? And out of that 5,000, what's that going to pay me? And then how much money is left over for me to actually have effective marketing for them? Some of us maybe only see dollar signs and we want to do certain things where we are actually just doing something that has an effect to it, and that costs. But if you are trying to pay yourself too much, then you can't accomplish what you're guaranteeing to them as a marketer. So this still has the underlying question of this email from Snyder, which was, how do I get these businesses to see the value? A lot of businesses now you see are on Facebook and Twitter, and they're putting those posts out there, and not a lot of them are seeing interactions. We've talked about this in previous podcasts where a business is starting to take over themselves. They're doing all this work and they're not seeing any results. So they don't think that kind of marketing is effective. The reality is that it's the type of way that the vehicle they're using, they're not driving it right. They're not using Facebook the right way. They're not using Twitter the right way. So a thing to kind of jump into is to kind of go back to content strategy and understand what they've been doing in the past, and explain to them what they could be doing more of. I had an entire podcast where I explained using your actual workers to produce content, because they have the everyday day-to-day interactions with customers and product and sales to see what works and what doesn't. So using that knowledge that you have in house to build videos, to build how-to videos. Um, the biggest thing that a business needs to learn is what sets themselves apart with their product from the other next business. Maybe they have absolute killer customer service. And that's something that is a reality. So if you have really good customer service, then you can use that as a strength for your business, and that can help you build your brand. We may sell product A, but we sell product A and we have the best customer service, we have the best delivery, and maybe you have the best prices. Sometimes the bottom line is we can do it more affordably for some reason than anybody else, so we have a better price than anybody. So, and no matter what, price really goes a long way with consumers. That's why Amazon's so successful, because they can beat most prices anywhere else. Um, so, figuring out what that niche is that that business does helps them better understand the value that's maybe underlying there that they didn't know existed. A business may think, well, we have the product, we have everything we need in place, but I don't understand why we're getting sales. The general answer there is, well, you're not putting yourself out there into the right spots. So, again, going back to the 6 questions we're asking, knowing that audience that we're going to go after helps them really understand that maybe it has nothing to do with their business or their product. Maybe it has everything to do with where they're getting exposed. And those are little things that we can fix pretty quickly. Having them understand the value of making the investment, if they're pulling you in for a conversation, usually is at a point where they're either at a kind of a plateau of sales where they've maybe saw an increase and then it leveled off, or they're in a dip of sales. That could be caused by recessions. It could be caused by the economy. I mean, there's a lot of other factors that you need to consider going into this of why you're being called in. But it also could just be maybe they're fat in their checkbook and they want to cut some checks towards marketing now. Maybe they're looking for tax breaks. I don't know what makes a business pick up the phone and call me, but I think that a lot of the time it comes down to the fact that they see success from another business or a friend or whatever it is that they call you in. So when you are called in, you need to start to look at what they're doing. And as Snyder said, the Vista print business cards and the Microsoft Word flyers and advertisement newsletters are being made. And people think that because there's any kind of interaction with that, or because they think it looks nice from their business standpoint, or they pass it around the office and every employee, an employee doesn't care and doesn't speak up that says, well, I think this looks like shit. So they're complacent with that, and they think that this is perfectly fine. We can do this, and keep putting this kind of stuff out there. But what you can show them is the value of doing it better. So when I kind of work on my pitch, I don't always go into a business with no knowledge about them. I like to do quite a bit of research before I walk through their door. I like to know a lot about their competition ahead of time. I like to see maybe in their industry, it doesn't always have to be a local competition, but I like to see what other people are doing. So when I go in and I show them the value of taking that business card and redesigning it to a new business card, and getting a consistent brand across all of these looks, I think that that really helps my point when I'm in there, and it helps my cause to say, yes, your investment, if you only have $100, let me try to squeeze more money out of you to make you realize that printing enough business cards is going to cost you $500. And the design work's going to cost you $300 to design, and working with printers and everything else that we have to do, there's value behind me doing that work for you. So I'd like to go into a business, look at their competition and say, okay, well, I found this business that, if you look at their website, if you download their white paper, if you download their flyer, if you go to their blog, there's a consistent look behind it. There's the color schemes, there's the logo, there's branding, there's strong brand, there's a catchphrase they use over and over. It's in their content, it's in their writing. It's everything in social media is built around the concept of what they do. So I will show them the full package. You want to have a website, you want to have graphic materials, publication materials. You can't conceptually think all that through if you're a business and understand that the colors of each one needs to be similar. It's a little thing, but at the end of the day, it's part of your brand. Pepsi is blue and red, and we know that. We know that they're blue and red because they have branded themselves forever with that color scheme. Now, the shape of their logo has changed. The fonts have changed. Things have changed with Pepsi's brand. But one thing that's always consistent is their color scheme. So something as subtle and simple as a color makes a big difference. So those are little things that you need to kind of convey to them and convince them of. The other thing is just showing them the value of new avenues. If they're not on social media, go in there with your social media pitch, do your homework, Go in there with a sense of not over explaining it, but under explaining it to how it would apply to their business, and maybe even give them some examples. If I sell coffee mugs, and it's a giant industry, but it's a $1 billion industry of people drinking and buying coffee mugs. So what can set me apart? Well, there's coffee mugs out there that do simple catchphrases, and they have an Instagram account, and every morning maybe they have a coffee mug that has a certain saying on it that's brand new, and there's a face behind it. And every day they put out these coffee mugs. And in the description, they link to the coffee mug of the day to buy, so that I follow them, I watch them, and then when I see the coffee mug that I like, I go and buy it. Now, that's just something made up, but if you can explain that in simple terms to them, and maybe even show them, say, okay, here's this product that does the coffee mugs. I want to show you exactly what they're doing every day. And it's not much, but here's what they do, and here's how it's effective. And here's how I foresee a sale being done over this. So go in with some ideas. In my email back to Snyder, I explained to him that one of the clients I sat down with was a home builder. And one of my suggestions to them was to hire a student from our local university that I work at to come out and do it yourself videos for them, to just film guys working on houses. They're doing the work anyway. They're building the homes every day. So go out there and show them how they put together a bathroom or how they put together a kitchen, and build a bank of do it yourself videos on YouTube. The difference is that, a business may look at that and say, well, why would I give them a do it yourself video and then they're just going to do it themselves? The reality is that most people don't end up doing the things they watch on YouTube. If you're a fan of Pinterest, which my wife is, every time that she's tried to make something from Pinterest or bake something, it doesn't look like it. It looks like a third grade art project. And she knows that because I tell her all the time. But the reality is that people will attempt to maybe do these things. But when it comes to something like home building or remodeling, there's a lot of things in there that need to be done right in order for it to work correctly. So at the end of the day, they may be watching it as a do yourself video, but they're gaining value from you and your brand. And if you brand that video correctly, if you have a watermark of your logo, and you maybe scroll something that says, okay, you can contact us to help you with this part of the remodel. Maybe people want to put down the tile, but they don't want to do the cabinetry. So that's an opportunity for that home builder then to go in and do cabinetry. So it's one little idea. It doesn't cost a lot of money to do those videos and edit them correctly, especially if you're using students and young people to do this. What you end up doing is you build an avenue of content, a content stream that's pushing people to your website. So with a small business, you really need to think of yourself on your pitch as going in and educating them as to their options. And you're going to scare them because they're going to think that this is going to cost a lot. But if you are doing the work yourself and you're not taking on too much, making sure you have a solid timeline as to how something like that would take. If you're going to be building, if you're going to be doing a remodel and a do-it-yourself video, it depends on how fast you guys work. So maybe you can put an entire kitchen together in 2 weeks. Well, we have 2 weeks of filming then. So with 2 weeks of filming, that means you're going to have at least 3 to 4 days probably of ingesting that video and categorizing it and kind of chopping it up, and maybe a whole nother week or 2 of editing. So you're in for, let's say you're doing $10 an hour. So you have to do the 10 times the however long, how many hours that would end up being. And then you could kind of come out and say, okay, in 4 weeks time, it costs X amount of dollars, but here's what you're going to end up with. And then we could put that on YouTube. And if one person picks up the phone and calls and says, I want to do this, then you've paid for the project itself. So things like that, you have to be creative with small businesses. That's the whole point of being an entrepreneur or being a startup company. When you hear about these startups that are out fundraising and doing things, there's usually a good solid idea behind it, which is what most small businesses have, is a solid idea that works. The second step is that they have unique marketing and they have a unique niche that they can tap into to actually get people to follow them. Now, Snyder went on to say in this, after I responded to him, he responded back to me and said that he was actually working with ended up being a friend, but it was a business that he did that exact similar thing was that he went with them with 60 pages, he says, of notes and ideas and a plan and what they're going to do. But what he noticed right away was when he gave them the first step of, okay, well, here's one of the first steps we need to do to get through my 60 something plan. They didn't want to upfront the money for it. They were trying to figure out a cheaper way to do it. And he went through his email and said, well, that was strike one. And then there was another instance of something that was strike two or strike three. So at the end of Snyder's second email to me, I realized that, and I think he realized this as well, is that at some point you need to know with small business when you need to back away and back out. And that's sometimes a hard pill for us to swallow because it's almost like you're leaving money on the table and you're leaving an opportunity on the table. Now, if you're a person getting out of college, if you're a young person that's getting out of college and you're not working for anybody and you're trying to build your own personal brand, which is going to be the next topic we jump into here. If you're trying to just build your own personal brand, you need to do this work. And sometimes you will do it for what seems next to nothing. And I've done my share of work where I almost felt like I was paying to help them get these things done. But what that does is it gives you really, really good experience with working with these small businesses. And if you can actually be successful in this, if you can turn this around and you can promise and do all the things that you told this business you can do for them, and you actually accomplish it and you win at it and you drive their sales up and they bring you on or they bring you back, you're going to learn so much from that experience. You're going to have so much in your arsenal for when you move forward that any other business that you work with is going to get easier and easier. And you're going to fine tune your pitch and you're going to fine tune what services you can actually accomplish for a business. So it's really important that you, as you listen to this, you figure out where you're at. Are you the newbie? Are you the 1 year out of college? Are you the 6 months out of college? Are you the 5 year guy out of college? Are you the guy that's reinventing himself and looking for a switch over and to get into marketing? What are you? So whatever your position is, if you've been doing this for 10 years, you're probably hearing a lot of stuff and shaking your head and going, yeah, I've done all this. But a lot of these students that I work with at YSU and these kids that sit down with me and we talk, these are the things I explain is that, these small businesses are tough to work for and they're tough to work with because they have to be frugal because they don't have a lot of capital to throw into marketing. Um, so you have to kind of grind and you have to really just put in the work and put in the effort. And if you do that over and over again, and you might do it for 3 years, then you're going to get to a place where you have that experience and it'll become so much easier for you to go out and win new clients and sync new clients. So Snyder's email was really awesome to get. I mean, first of all, he found me on Google Music, and since they just released a new podcast, I was on there as soon as I knew that they were doing that. I submitted, so I was there. But it was nice to hear from somebody finally. And like I started this podcast and said, strange week for me because another person actually reached out to me, and he had a similar question, but it was more about him having a personal brand and getting new clients. So, and this was from Zachary Moore from ZacharyWrites.com. And what he wrote to me was, thanks for your podcast, email marketing. I learned the importance of consistency, text, colors, images, and emails, which is something he never knew about. Some people do get value. He said he's a freelance copywriter and he wants to write a newsletter for small to mid-sized businesses. And he's having trouble finding clients. So, he said, as you can tell, I have not a lot of knowledge about marketing. Do I have any ideas like this? Because yes, I have 1,000 ideas I want to give to you. So beyond thanking him for listening to the podcast, my first big suggestion to him in all bold with exclamation marks was get on social media. And so what I actually did for him, and not that I was looking for Zach to be a client of mine, but what I did for Zach is I did a quick Twitter search. So I went to twitter.com/search and I did a search for anything that said copywriting and hiring. And I did that long search string together. And then I got all kind of results. So what I found right away was other businesses that were tweeting out looking for a copywriter, anyone that was actually maybe a small business, or maybe it was a third-party company that was just looking for additional copywriters. I found those things. So here's, like, I just clicked on the link I sent him, and on May 5th, there was a tweet out there that says any CRM long copywriters with 3 to 5 years experience looking for a gig. So what I love about that specific one right there is the 3 to 5 years experience. I don't understand what 3 to 5 years of experience of writing really helps in the writing world. I know someone's out there going to shake their head and so no, it took me 5 years to get my first, big piece of copy printed or whatever. The reality is that, I think if you're a good writer, that's something that comes natural, just like an artist. Have with an art background, I knew that art was something I wanted to do. So that right there, there's another one here that says copywriters. I'm looking for a brand and website designer. So um, there's some opportunity there. So I sent this. So what I'm getting to is I sent this to him and I said, Zach, when you go on Twitter, you have these opportunities but kind of looked for Zach out there and I didn't find him. So I knew he wasn't on social media, which is why I told him to get there, because now he can take that tweet and respond out to it and says, hi, business A, I read your newsletter and, or I saw your tweet out there and I want to jump into the hat. I want to give my hat to you and show you my resume. Here's a writing example. I'm looking for some work. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. So something as simple as that, you have a Twitter account, you respond. Now, the thing is, if with Zach is he has to get on Twitter and kind of establish himself. So what I told him to kind of do is maybe go out there and write a bunch of cut lines and throw them out and just start tweeting them out there, or maybe do rewrites of headlines and maybe do funny things. I read this headline, but wouldn't it be funny if it said this, and start to build content on your Twitter feed. He also had a website that didn't have any of the links to his social media. So I knew that, but I thought he could do some other things on his website to kind of build up his copywriting. The other thing I told him to do is actually Google newsletters. A lot of businesses publish their newsletters to the web. So I told him, go find a newsletter out there that in an industry that you're interested in, because if you're writing, you might as well write about what you're interested in. Go find a newsletter about that and reach out to them and said, hey, I read your newsletter, but I'm a copywriter. And I thought that if you made these changes or you made these changes to your subject line, you might have gotten more opens. And I just wanted to give this suggestion. Thanks. And that's it. Back away from it. And then I guarantee that if the receiver of that, whether it's a marketing person or whoever gets that, they may sit there and go, maybe he's right. Let me reach out to him and see what he thinks about the one we're working on right now. As Gary Vaynerchuk always says, you have to give value to people. So you can't just go in and say, hey, I'm a copywriter. I think your newsletter sucked. Here's what I wrote. Hire me. You need to say, here's what I think. Here's what I think you could do. Thank you. Hope you enjoy this. I hope this helps. See ya. And then send that out to 100 different people. Because if one responds back, it's still one, but it's a good start. And it's a place to kind of start to lay the foundation for you, especially, again, if you're a new person getting out there and you're trying to figure out, how do I break through? That's the only way it works. You got to grind. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen within the first 1 to 5 years. You really have to work at it. So between what I got from Zach and what I got from Snyder, this week I didn't have to think about what I was going to podcast. Usually I like to sit down and say, okay, what should I talk about this week? What did I read this week that triggered something in my mind? And I usually make notes throughout the week of things I want to talk about. But I had 2 really solid emails that came through that I thought, these are things that I go through all the time. So whether or not you're trying to build your personal brand like Zach was, or if you're trying to break through with a new client, which Snyder was, they're both related very much to one another. So you don't necessarily need to have the huge resume to get out there and put your face out there. But you need to get that experience of chiseling down and making the pitch more effective and really getting out there and building your personal brand. And then you'll be able to land clients very easily from there. So I hope that this podcast had some very good value for you. As both of they did, I hope that you can reach out to me with any suggestions or questions or comments. You can email me at rossmorone@gmail.com. That's ROSSMORRONE @gmail.com. You can actually tweet at me at rossmorone, same spelling. And again, you can search for me and follow me and subscribe to me on podcast services. You can look for my videos on YouTube. I have each podcast as a video cast as well. So again, I thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the This is Marketing Podcast.